Hello and welcome to a new edition of True Audio Files. Today, as you saw in the title, I will be doing a sound quality shootout with the Devo album, Freedom of Choice. And the big reason why I'm doing this, if you don't already know, is that Rhino has released a high fidelity version of this album. It came out the same time as the ever popular Black Sabbath that I did a shootout for earlier, and you can check that video out if you want. But this is the new Rhino High Fidelity Devo Freedom from Choice of Choice. Sorry, I got like number 2500 or something like that. But as usual with all the Rhinos, they're a beautiful gatefold. The OB on it as well. Good super high quality jackets, pressed at optimal medium in West Germany, or I guess I should say West Germany. What am I, in the 80s? Germany. So that is the main reason why I'm doing this shootout. And I am going to be shooting it out with two other copies of the album. I have an early pressing. I don't know if it's necessarily a first, but it's certainly an early pressing of the album. And I also have a reissue from Rhino from, I believe it's 2016. It could actually probably technically is 2015, although I think it came out like at the very beginning of 2016. It's the 35th anniversary edition of the album. What is very cool about this one, and the big reason why I did buy it, because I'm a sucker for colored vinyl, and this particular one is a very, very cool colored vinyl. So that is the second version that I have going to be comparing the Rhino High Fidelity to. So as is the case with all of these shootouts, what I typically do is I will listen to the new, or the newly, I should say, reissued version of the album, because it's usually why I do these, and listen to it all the way through, try to figure out what song is going to be the best song for me to do a shootout between all three albums. That way I can do a quick A-B comparisons between the albums based on one track, and I can listen to maybe the first, hopefully can find a song that the first 20-30 seconds of it are a really good comparison piece. So, and in this case, I did Whip It, and mainly because a lot of the other tracks didn't really have a whole lot going on from left to right in terms of the wideness of the soundstage, but Whip It really was cool because it had cymbals going on in both left and right speakers pretty wide out there, and then there was a part, I want to say as a keyboard, that kind of went back and forth between the left and right channels as well, so I thought that would be a great indicator of how well the album had separation and 3D sound to it and things like that. So put on the high fidelity, listen to it all the way through. First impressions, number one was I thought I was really impressed with how quiet the vinyl was. I mean, it was probably really close to super vinyl level quiet, which does not happen often, but it was very close to that. And it was a very warm sounding version of the album. I expected when listening to this that it would be much warmer and less bright in comparison to the early pressings, mainly because it was very early in the 80s, like I think 1980, but generally speaking 80s albums in my opinion have always sounded very bright and then sometimes harsh, but anyways we'll find that out later whether that was the case here. So but I thought overall is a relatively neutral sounding recording. Had some great clarity to it, great 3D element to the soundstage, a good, nice, wide soundstage, and that was one thing. Whip It really stood out for me when I first heard it, is how wide the soundstage was. It almost sounded like it went a little bit beyond my speakers, which was pretty awesome, and that panning left and right and back and forth on, like I said, I believe it's a keyboard. It could be a guitar, but I think it was a keyboard on Whip It. Sounded really great, and you could really track where it was going well. So I was really impressed with how it sounded and was very curious how it would be comparable to the other pressings. So I went back, played Whip It again for 20, 30 seconds, then on this high fidelity version, and then I went and listened to the early pressing, and I was surprised at how it wasn't quite as bright as I was expecting it to be. I think actually the high fidelity Rhino actually had a little bit more trouble than that one, so I was relatively surprised. So that one didn't quite get that bright factor that a lot of the '80s recordings tended to get. Maybe a little too early. So overall, though, I think it sounded really, really good. Good, relatively wide sound stage. I would say the high fidelity definitely had a wider sound stage than the original. I also felt that the high fidelity had a little bit better separation between instruments, kind of a more of a 3D enveloping sound stage, definitely wider. As mentioned earlier, I felt that the cymbals that were panned left and right on Whip It felt like they went beyond the speakers on the high fidelity, where I didn't feel that they did that on the early pressing. Still sounded pretty awesome though. Sorry about that. I have I have my work phone on me and didn't realize I had the ringer on. I didn't even realize I had it with me, so apologize for that noise. But anyways, then I went and tried out the 2015-2016 version of the reissue that was on the colored vinyl. And I would say it sounded very, very, very close. I would say that it, similar sound stage, similar EQ, although I think maybe it had a touch more treble than the early pressing did, but otherwise nearly identical. I would say both the early pressing and that 2015-16 reissue probably were about equal in terms of vinyl pressing quality. I definitely felt that the Rhino was by far the quieter of the three that I had. So this one was, in my opinion, a noticeably improved sound, in my opinion anyways, for the high fidelity versus the earlier pressings, as opposed to the Black Sabbath one, where I thought there was good and bad on both of them, or there were pros to both in comparison to each other. This one, I don't know, I really feel strongly that the Rhino High Fidelity was superior in every facet of the recording or the pressing and the reissue. And I'm not going to sit here and say it's dramatically better, but if this is an album that you really like a lot and you want the best sounding version of this album, I haven't heard any other versions, so maybe there's a Japanese version that sounds great or anything, but of the three that I've heard, there's no doubt in my mind that the Rhino High Fidelity was the superior sounding one to my ears on my system. But I would love to hear your take on it and see what you think. Do you have other versions that maybe are better than the early/first pressing of the album, or maybe I'm missing something? Maybe there's one that maybe even outdoes the Rhino High Fidelity. But I'd be curious about your take. Obviously, my take is purely opinion and subjective, but I would be pretty hard pressed to understand why someone would feel that the earlier pressing sounds better. Now, maybe they think it sounds the same, or maybe someone who has a really, really bright system in a really, really bright room may potentially see the high fidelity as too bright, although I can't see that. I have a hard time seeing that, I should say, just because it's not really all that bright, but it is noticeably brighter than the original. I thought that the original probably didn't have enough treble on it, so... But anyway, that's kind of my take on it. I want to hear what you have to say. Have you listened to the new high fidelity? And if you have, what's your take on it in comparison to the other versions that you may have, or ones that you've heard? But really love to hear your take on that, and let's put that in the comments section below. I want to thank you very much for watching the video. I want to thank you for being a subscriber. If you're not a subscriber, please do hit that subscribe button. Love to see new subscribers. If you like the video, hit the like button. Like I said, comment below, and if you want to know when my new videos come out, please hit that alert bell. That's everything I've got for this episode. Thank you very much, and you have yourself a great rest of the day and a great rest of your week. Thanks a lot.